And could you tell us a little bit about the struggles that your colleagues face living in San Francisco?
One of the things that I think that my colleagues, especially in nonprofit, face is that the work that they do is undervalued and underpaid. Oftentimes, we'll talk to my colleagues, and I'll find out that one of our janitorial staff. This is one of the examples that I use is that one of our janitorial staff shared his in a casual conversation shared his story of recovery with one of our residents. That was the catalyst for that resident to be able to take that step for themselves and achieve that level of self-sufficiency for themselves and start their path to recovery. That's not something that is captured in the metrics of success for janitorial staff, but that's something that's happening often, and it's part of why our nonprofit workers are undervalued and underpaid. They're doing the jobs that are creating the outcomes and success that we all will benefit from as a city, yet they're severely undervalued and underpaid. And it breaks my heart when I hear our janitorial staff, after having to deal with cleaning up biological wastes and hazardous issues like that. We'll talk about having a second job that they have to work immediately after that, and there's no rest in between for them. A lot of our workers do commute from the East Bay because of affordability issues, and so we have people that are not being able to take care of themselves and end up being the same clients that we end up serving. And I think that's the biggest tragedy, is that in our city we have all these programs to set up and help people with affordability and supports around things that kind of beat us down as lower income people, but somehow the supports have actually gone to people at a higher income level. I was floored the other day when a below market rate opportunity came up, and the income level, the rent for the property was $2,777. I don't know any of my nonprofit coworkers that take that home, let alone be able to pay that for rent. So it's an extreme disconnect, and it is tragic when I see people that I've worked with that are then struggling out on the streets and deteriorating. And unfortunately, people end up the consequences of not valuing and compensating our workers in nonprofits, especially people that work at these real difficult and deep intersections, is eventually death. Because if people aren't able to pay their rent, if people aren't able to participate in society, as we struggle to gain for our residents, then the consequences are health deterioration, eventual homelessness, and as we see on our streets, daily death. And so I think it's really important that we as a city, if we are going to be prioritizing success metrics and prioritize that the nonprofits do the work that city workers are not doing, then we really do need to be compensating those people at an equal and fair level, and make sure that we're including our workers in the process that creates these success metrics. That way we're actually capturing the real work that people are doing.
And what's your hope for the future?
My hope for the future is that our nonprofit workers would be compensated to the point where no one would have to have a second job, similarly to how the other unions have used the one job should be enough. Because honestly, it should be one job should be enough. The stress is that our nonprofit workers, especially in housing, our social service workers, our janitorial maintenance staff that are cleaning up after, people's health issues and stuff like that. It's so more intense and difficult to decompress from the things that you see on a daily basis than somebody who might be working in retail or might not be working at these kind of social intersections. Then you add on top of that people are not being compensated, that oftentimes the stresses of workplace managerial styles are actually more so stressful than the relations and outcomes that you have with the people that you're working with. And that needs to be real flipped, because we should be prioritizing the well-being and self-care of the people that actually have to model that for people who are recovering from traumas that society has placed on them. And we're not there yet, but I think that we're gonna get there, because I think that the status quo isn't working, and I think that the outcomes and successes of our programs are kind of reflective of that. I think our residents are even saying that if we can't retain, people on staff, if there's not consistency in staff, then it's difficult for them to have relations with them. Even our managers are saying that if they can't keep a good workforce, then they're not going to be able to produce the outcomes and successes that the city requires. So I think a new day is ready to come.